What's up, Packer fans, and what's up, NFL fans? It's your boy Tramel coming back with another video. And in this video, I'm going to give a quick recap to see how well I did with my week one predictions last week. I think I did a pretty good job. I finished with a record of 12-3-1 to start the season. So let's talk about it. Let's start with the very first game to kick off the 2019 season. My Green Bay Packers went on the road at Soldier Field to face the Chicago Bears. And I picked my Green Bay Packers to win this game, and I was correct about this game. The Packers won with a score of 10-3, and it was a very good defensive game. Both defenses played excellent in this game. The offenses were kind of sloppy, but the defenses held both of these teams in the game, and it was a very good game. I was correct about that one. My Packers got the win. Next game, the Cleveland Browns versus the Tennessee Titans. This one shocked me the most. I picked the Cleveland Browns to win this game, and I was incorrect. Now, I knew the Tennessee Titans had a chance to win this game, but I didn't expect them to win by 30 points. The Tennessee Titans won this game 43-13. They just totally annihilated the Cleveland Browns, and they shut down that Cleveland Browns offense. And they had the Defensive Player of the Week, Cameron Wake. He finished with 2.5 sacks and 3 tackles. And I didn't see this coming at all. But I think the Cleveland Browns will bounce back. And I think the Tennessee Titans will be a good football team in 2019. Next game, the Baltimore Ravens versus the Miami Dolphins. Now, I knew this game was going to be a blowout from the jump, and I was correct about this one. I picked the Baltimore Ravens to win, and they did just that with the score of 59-10. This game was over by the first quarter, and it's going to be a long year for the Miami Dolphins. You already have players running to their agents trying to get out of Miami, requesting for a trade. So this is going to be a long year for Miami, and this might be one of the worst football teams we've ever seen in the history of the NFL. Next game, the Minnesota Vikings versus the Atlanta Falcons. I was correct about this game as well. And I thought this was going to be the game of the week, but I was wrong about it. Minnesota just totally dominated Atlanta in this one. And Kirk Cousins only threw the ball 10 times in this game. He went 8 for 10 and 98 yards. He only threw 10 times because they got their run game going. Minnesota's run game just ran all over Atlanta in this one. And Atlanta didn't compete at all. Atlanta turned the ball over on offense, and the defense just couldn't stop the run. They got dominated, and they looked just like they did last season. Next game, the New York Jets versus the Buffalo Bills. I was incorrect about this one. I had selected the New York Jets to get a home victory over the Buffalo Bills, but the Buffalo Bills held on and won this game with the score of 17-16. And this was Le'Veon Bell's first game back after missing the entire 2018 season. And he looked pretty good in this game. It was only so much he could do against that elite Buffalo Bills defense. They picked up right where they left off in 2018. They're a very good defense. And the New York Jets just couldn't take advantage of 4 takeaways in that first half. Josh Allen turned the ball over 4 times in that first half. He had 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles lost. And it was a sloppy game overall, but New York just couldn't take advantage. And the Buffalo Bills held on and got a 1-point victory. Next game, the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Washington Redskins. I was correct about this one. I had picked the Philadelphia Eagles to win this one. They won with the score of 32-27. And they scared me a little bit. They started off down 17-0 in this game. The Washington Redskins got off to a very fast start. And they took a big lead in that first half. But in the second half, the Philadelphia Eagles bounced back just like I expected them to. And they snatched the victory at home. Deshaun Jackson looked very good in this game. He's finally the deep threat that Carson Wentz never had. Carson Wentz did all that stuff in his MVP year without a true deep threat. And now he has Deshaun Jackson to throw to, and he's going to have an MVP year in 2019. He's going to put up better numbers than what he did in 2017. So they're going to tear the league up this year. Next game, the Carolina Panthers versus the Los Angeles Rams. I was correct about this one. I had selected the Los Angeles Rams to get a road victory in Carolina, and they did so with the score of 30-27, and they pretty much led the entire game. And Ty Gurley, he looked pretty good. He had 95 yards. His backup running back, Malcolm Brown, he had a big game. I believe he had 58 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. And then for the Carolina Panthers, Christian McCaffrey had a monster game. He had 128 rushing yards and he had 81 receiving yards. And he's going to be huge in 2019. He's going to have an MVP type season. He's an underrated candidate to win the MVP for the 2019 season. Next game, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was correct about this game. I selected the Kansas City Chiefs to get a home victory against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they did with the score 40-26. And their offense hasn't lost a step at all. Even with Tyreek Hill missing that second half with the injury, he's going to miss about a month or two with his injury. And they looked amazing in this game, especially Sammy Watkins. He really stepped up big in that game. He torched that Jacksonville Jaguars defense that everybody speaks so highly about. And for Jacksonville, their defense just doesn't look the same. I'm not sure what's going on with their defense. I don't know if it's because they played the Chiefs or what. But on the offensive side of the ball, they looked okay. They looked pretty decent. They did play a very bad Kansas City Chief defense, but they showed a little promise on the offensive side of the ball. Now, they did lose Nick Foles, who broke his shoulder. He's going to be out for some time. He's placed on injured reserve. But the backup quarterback that they had in there, he looked pretty good. And they also just traded for Josh Dobbs from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we'll see how that plays out for them as the weeks go by. Next game, the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Indianapolis Colts. I was correct about this one. I selected the Los Angeles Chargers to get a home victory against the Indianapolis Colts without Andrew Luck. And they won with the score of 30-24 in overtime. And the game honestly shouldn't have went to overtime. The Chargers had so many opportunities in that fourth quarter to end the game, but they let the Colts hang around and they ended up going to overtime. But they took care of business in overtime, and Austin Eckler had a huge game. He had 3 touchdowns in this one. And it looks like they don't miss Melvin Gordon at all. So Melvin Gordon looks like he's not going to get a contract from this team. Next game, the Seattle Seahawks versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I was correct about this game. I selected the Seattle Seahawks to beat the Cincinnati Bengals, and they did with the score of 21-20. Now, I didn't expect this game to be that close, and Seattle barely pulled it off at home against a very bad Cincinnati Bengals team. And Andy Dalton just torched the Seattle Seahawks defense. He had 418 passing yards. And John Ross, he torched the Seattle defense as well. He had 158 receiving yards, and he had 2 touchdowns in this one. And like I said, this one was closer than what I thought it was going to be. And I'm kind of disappointed in Seattle. Their offense couldn't get anything going in this one. And I think they're going to struggle in 2019 with that offense. They just don't have enough weapons at that receiver position. And if they can't get the run game going, then they're really in trouble because of the lack of receivers that they have. But they pulled it off, and they held my prediction to be true. Next game, we have the Dallas Cowboys versus the New York Giants. I was correct about this one. I selected the Dallas Cowboys to win, and they won with a score of 35-17. And they took care of business. Dak Prescott looked excellent in this one. He had a perfect passer rating, and he threw over 400 yards. And I believe he had 3 touchdowns. And that Dallas offense looked very good. Those receivers played excellent. Randall Cobb looked very well. If he could stay healthy, he's going to be big for Dallas. Michael Gallup looked good. Amari Cooper looked good. Jason Witten caught a touchdown pass. So that Dallas offense was rolling. And then for the New York Giants, I already knew they were going to be one of the worst teams in football headed into this season. But they didn't look as bad as I thought they were going to be. They proved that they can hang with a few teams for a little period of time. And Saquon Barkley, I think in that game, he just proved that he's the best running back in football. He's a special running back. You can't tackle this guy at all. And once he gets an offensive line later in his career, Man, he's going to be the best running back by far. Next game, the Arizona Cardinals versus the Detroit Lions. This game ended up as a tie with the score of 27-27. That's why my record was 12-3-1, because the Lions and the Cardinals tied. And the Detroit Lions made me look like a darn fool. They made me look like a complete idiot, because before the season started, I spoke so highly on this Detroit Lions team. I was telling a lot of people that this isn't the same Detroit Lions team anymore. They're not a pushover anymore, and they could be a playoff team. And in this game, they just completely choked against one of the worst teams in football that didn't even have their best cornerback and Patrick Peterson. Their best two cornerbacks at that. Robert Alford didn't play in this one either. So they were playing with third and fourth string corners in this game. And the Detroit Lions just couldn't get it done. They completely choked in this game. They had a 17-point lead. And they had so many opportunities to end the football game. In the third quarter, this game could have been over. And in the fourth quarter, they just completely choked. Whether that was the Trey Flowers hands to the face call that led to a touchdown for Arizona and a 2-point conversion at the end of the game. Whether that was Matt Patricia calling a silly timeout where Matthew Stafford had snapped the ball and had a wide open first down to J.D. McKissick that got called back because Matt Patricia called that timeout. And then Danny Amendola on that last drive of the fourth quarter, he didn't get out of bounds, and that made the clock just continue to run. And that really hurt Detroit's chances of attempting the field goal in regulation. And then early in the third quarter, Jamal Agnew, he fumbled a punt, and that gave Arizona a lot of momentum. And hats off to Kyler Murray for the Arizona Cardinals. He led that team to a comeback. Kyler Murray and Larry Fitzgerald, they really played a very good football game in that second half. And David Johnson, he looked good in this game as well. He had a receiving touchdown, and he also had 82 rushing yards. It's only so much he could do behind that terrible offensive line. And Kyler Murray, he was out there running for his life in this one. But he held through, and he led that team to a comeback in overtime, and they ended up tying this one, a game that they shouldn't have even been in. Next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the San Francisco 49ers. I was correct about this game. I selected the San Francisco 49ers to win, and they did with the score of 31-17. And this one was a sloppy game. It was a defensive game. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a pick six in this one, and the San Francisco 49ers had two pick sixes in this one. Both offenses looked very sloppy in this one. And for Tampa Bay, Jameis Winston just looks terrible. His decision making has not changed since his college days. It's the same since he was at Florida State. He just continues to make bad decisions with the football. And he looked bad in this one. I think this is his last season as a starting quarterback. And then for San Francisco, Jimmy Garoppolo, he looked pretty bad in this one as well. He had a rough training camp, and he continues to struggle. So he's going to have to get it together if the San Francisco 49ers want to compete in that NFC West division. Next game, we have the New England Patriots versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was correct about this one. I selected the New England Patriots to win this game, and they did in a blowout fashion. This was one of the hardest games to watch during week one. And the New England Patriots just dominated the Pittsburgh Steelers. On the offensive side of the ball, their offense was just rolling. They looked amazing. Josh Gordon played very well. Dorsett played very well. He had 2 touchdowns. They just got Antonio Brown. He'll play in week 2 now. Their offense is just so unstoppable, and it's going to get even better when Antonio Brown comes to the team. And for the Pittsburgh Steelers, their offense looked atrocious against the New England Patriots defense. Big Ben overthrowing receivers 20 yards down the field. Dante Moncrief dropping pass after pass. Juju Smith-Schuster getting locked up by Stephon Gilmore. And then James Conner, he couldn't get anything going with the run game. So it was just a total boo-boo show for the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football against the New England Patriots. They looked very bad in this one. Next game, Monday Night Football, arguably the best game for week 1. The New Orleans Saints versus the Houston Texans. My prediction was correct in this one. I selected the New Orleans Saints to win, and they did with the score of 30-28. They got their very first home opener victory for the first time in 5 seasons, and they barely did that. It took a game-winning field goal for the New Orleans Saints to win this one, and this game was a thriller. It was back and forth, back and forth. And Deshaun Watson for the Houston Texans, he showed that he's the truth. I think he's a top 10 quarterback now in this league. And then for DeAndre Hopkins, he just continues to make a strong case for being the number one wide receiver in the NFL. I think it's very debatable between him, Antonio Brown, and Julio Jones. I just can't pick who's the number one receiver out of those three guys. But DeAndre Hopkins, he's an absolute monster. He was big in this game. Kenny Stills, he almost had the game-winning touchdown until the New Orleans Saints went down and kicked that game-winning field goal. And I blame the Houston Texans defense for losing this game because they went in prevent defense with 6 seconds left in the football game, which gave Drew Brees one play to pick up some yardage to get into field goal position. There was no reason why Houston should have played prevent defense. The very last game to end the week, the Oakland Raiders versus the Denver Broncos. I was incorrect about this game. I had selected the Denver Broncos to win this game, and the Oakland Raiders ended up winning at home with the score of 24-16. And for the Denver Broncos, they made me look like a complete idiot. Before the season, I spoke so highly on this team. I spoke highly on their defense. I spoke highly on that offense. I really believed that that offense would do better in 2019. And the way they played against Oakland, they made me look like a complete idiot. Also, I said they were going to finish second in that division over the Los Angeles Chargers. And the way they played against Oakland just made me look like a complete fool. They were terrible in this game. The defense couldn't stop the run at all. Josh Jacobs just ran all over that defense. Derek Carr, he torched that Denver Broncos defense. Tyrell Williams, he torched that Denver Broncos defense. And then on the offensive side of the ball, it gets even worse. Joe Flacco played horrible. Deshaun Hamilton was dropping passes. All they had going for them was the run game with Phillip Lindsay and Freeman. I like those guys. I like their receivers too, but I just don't think this offense is ever going to get it going. And I don't think Joe Flacco is the guy. So I expect a lot of struggles for this Denver Broncos team. I'm already off the bandwagon. I'm already off the Denver Broncos hype train that I started before the season started. It only took me week 1 to get off of it. But that's my recap and my prediction review for week 1 of the 2019 NFL season. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. I want to know you guys' thoughts on week 1 of the 2019 NFL season. And also leave a like, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and also follow the social media on Instagram and on Twitter at cheesehead_talk. Again, that's cheesehead_talk. Go Pack, go.